And we are back on Build Phase TV. I'm your host, mrben, and today we are going to watch a game of Versus at double speed because it took more than 2 hours. So to set the stage here, this was the final week of Buckeye League, which is being played in the second chance format. I am on the bottom. I'm playing Flash Thompson. On the top, Scott is playing Cloak and Dagger. This is not a main character that I've ever played against prior to this. So this was a little bit of a learning experience for me as well. And as such, I thought I would narrate some of the things that were going on throughout the course of this game. First of all, we talked a whole bunch at the beginning before we actually rolled any dice. So I may try to fast forward this here just a little bit. Oh, there we go. Ultimately, Scott run the dice roll. I don't remember what the results were, but we're already into mulligans here. So I looked at my opening hand, and what I had in here that looked really good is what I was lacking was locations. But what I had that looked good is I had the Frank Drake, I had a handful of Sentinels, and I had, I think, one wild location. So I was like, okay, I'll be able to draw 2 extra cards with Flash. That should get me the Ultron and the yellow that I need, or so I was hoping. That turn 1 Harry Osborn from Scott ended up being massive over the course of the game between his counters from Cloak and Dagger and all the giant characters he was able to recruit out of turn. It was... he got his value out of that Harry Osborn for sure. So I play cards down in my basement, so I had to put my gloves on. Hands were too cold. So the -1 counter that's on Flash came from the activation of Dagger, and the activation of Cloak, and the +1 that's on Cloak came from the activation of Dagger. He's going to swing in with Dagger and just basically put a free wound on me on turn 1 here. So what I really wanted to see off my draw here was either a Daily Bugle or a Clintar, so that I'd be sure that I would be able to draw 2 extra cards with Flash at least a couple times. This is one of those times where we kind of went and talked about something that had nothing to do. Part of the reason this game lasted 2 hours was that multiple times throughout it we stopped and started talking about general things about cards, which, wow, I didn't realize how much I was showing my hand to the camera. I need to be better about that. So it is not unusual for me when I'm playing this deck to turn 1, play a wild, draw 2 cards, and just pass, and that's my turn. Oh, I must not have had any wilds in my opening hand to throw green down on turn 1. So I throw out the 1 executive so this does a couple things. This activates MCA, depending upon what he ends up throwing out. I might need to do that. Off to the side there, you can see me keeping notes about what Sentinels I'm playing. So end of turn, I'm pretty sure I level up here after doing no attacks because I can't deal with Cloak. It looks really funny when I tap my fingers at double speed. It's so fast. So the thing about Cloak and Dagger is if you get this early start where the opposing player just cannot get through the big butt on Cloak and Dagger's hiding in the back row, wow, dude, I'm just straight up showing my hand to the camera. That's not good. I need to be more diligent about that. So I ended up throwing a power-up because I didn't want Scott to be able to have the ability to just straight up kill my Sentinel using Dagger's power. I wanted to, I don't care if he kills him during the main phase. I wanted the Sentinel to be on board during the recruit phase, so that way I would be able to MCA something that came down that would be problematic. And I made a big mistake here. Okay, so Cloak and Dagger trigger at the start of his turn, puts the -1 on Flash, bringing him down to a 7/7, and I forgot, or I hadn't even forgot, literally the first time I've seen some of these cards. Scott's about to play one of those new Spider-Man cards that if you power up Spider-Man with it, it does something extra. And I got hung up on what that dude did. That guy right there, Prodigy, I think his name is. And I forgot about Gwen Stacy. I was asking about Prodigy, and I don't need to MCA that. I should have MCA'd Gwen Stacy and given myself one turn where he couldn't just attack in with Ferocious and wipe everything. It would have slowed him down just a little bit. And that was a mistake on my part, for sure. Look at this board. This is just turn 2. I mean, I was looking at this like, man, I went undefeated throughout this entire season of Buckeye League, and I am going to get completely annihilated in this last game. So Prodigy attacks in, and because he has Ferocious, because of the Gwen Stacy, he's able to just pick off my executive type Sentinel. Which I don't think I remembered to write down, because I don't see myself writing it there. Or maybe that was an alpha type, I don't remember. It's funny because the art is different, but I can't tell the difference. Like, I have to actually look at the text. The art is just noise to me. So I did get a wild there, but I can't use it to draw cards here because I'm level 2. Had I known I was going to top deck that wild, I may have let myself stay in level 1 form at the end of turn 1. That being said, I was able to hold off a wound there, which is pretty important. Yeah, I think that's an executive type. I think that other one was an alpha. I don't remember which alpha it was. So this is going to be another one of those turns where I really cannot do anything here. Now, discarding that Sentinel to power up was not ideal. Like, what you want to be able to do is play the Sentinels out, force your opponent to deal with them, and while it's kind of slowing them down and making their life uncomfortable, you are building up your resources in hand, and you're able to deploy another Sentinel that's a little bit bigger, and so on throughout the course of the game. I was not afforded that in this game. So I think what I'm doing here is asking a bunch of questions about how these different characters' powers are worded, because ultimately I think what I'm going to do is call her Gwen here because I'm I'm going to call her Prodigy here because I'm terrified of the bulletproof that makes it so like almost nobody in my deck can hit him. So I threw out the collar on the Prodigy there, which I don't think it's until later callers that Scott starts marking it on his side. The other thing I was worried about with the Prodigy is I didn't want to allow the Prodigy to generate an additional recruit point with the Harry Osborn. So between the bulletproof and benefiting from Gwen and Harry, I was like, okay, I got to take that threat away from him because I was already realizing I'm going to get chewed up with wounds here. Like, this is not going to be a good turn for me. So I think my thinking with this formation here was that I have a fairly safe, using Flash's power to put 2 green counters on him, but I only get 1 because I had a red. I have a fairly safe attack into Cloak, and I want to force him to use his Dagger ability on the Sentinel if he wants to get to it. And Spider Friends makes Cloak gigantic, and I level down at the end of my turn. So at this point, I was not feeling super great. So Dagger uses her power to kill the Sentinel. Cloak gets even bigger, and they both level up. And I'm like, I don't have the yellow for Frank Drake. I don't have an Ultron. I'm in big trouble here. I don't have any queens in hand. And to my eye, the wounds are absolutely going to start stacking up here rapidly. And Scott shows really no signs of slowing down. So he plays Firestar. And he goes through this a little bit quick here where he plays Firestar and then uses her superpower. I mean, I'm not saying he did anything out of sequence. He didn't. But in my mind, as I remembered it, she got the counters as she came. Oh, you can see me looking up Firestar because I'm so unfamiliar with the card. I had to look up what she actually did. But even looking her up, I still got confused. And I thought that she got her counters as an appear ability. And I was like, oh, my goodness. what am I going to do here? So there's a few times where there's cards that either just came out or they came out in a set that I didn't play with a whole lot towards the beginning of the year, where I just haven't memorized them yet. One thing I noticed about photographic cards is I kind of forgot what all of them do over the course of this year, where I haven't played with them very much. So I flipped the wild there to draw 2 extra cards, which got me the yellow, and played the Drake, got the machine. The problem is the machine isn't super worth it if you don't have the ability to draw your whole deck off of it. So I'm looking at this board, and there's just nothing I can do. So all I do here is level up just to make it a little bit harder for Scott to put another wound on me. I put Frank up front just so he has to send somebody into him to deal with him. I mean, he has more than enough options to deal with Frank at this point, and I'm in trouble. Now I know at any moment, if I draw into the things I need to combo off, I can maybe dig myself out of this hole. Well, not at any moment. I'm feeling at this time that the window where I'm going to be able to draw myself out of this hole is closing. Like the pressure was on. So Prodigy's basically doing nothing in the back row at this point because he, again, is still collared. With the Harry Osborn, he's got 6 recruit points on this turn. A little bit of a proxy there, but that's okay. Apparently, there's no Maximum Carnage in Ohio at this time. So Scott asked me beforehand, hey, is it okay if I use a black and white proxy? And I said, that's completely okay, man. So this is a card I hadn't seen before, the Disruptor Gun. And the way it works is when you attack, you remove all the counters off somebody. Not when you strike, not when you stun them, like you just rip the counters off when you declare the attack. And that giving her range and being able to just sit in the back row and peel counters off my guys was a real problem. Like all this stuff, this entire board is a real problem. I do love that Captain America though. So at this point, I feel like Scott has to feel just almost spoiled for choices. He's got some... I keep looking at my hand as if something's going to change, as if I'm going to have some way to bail myself out of this. Now, I do think it's a decent habit to always check your cards anytime your opponent passes to you, because if you only check your cards when you have something... So what happened there is I started to draw, and Scott remembered he needs to do the end of turn triggers for the level 2 Cloak and Dagger. Since I'm face down... Now, this is an interesting interaction. Since I'm face down, Cloak still triggers, so he has to put a -1 counter somewhere, and he can't put it on anybody on my board. So while he does grow bigger on his side, he's able to start throwing those -1 counters onto that useless Prodigy in the corner, which is frustrating. You know, I invested in trying to make that character less of an asset for him, and he's like, oh, this just gives me a place to put these minuses after I completely wreck your board. How rude. So I got another wild there, but I don't want to use it on putting counters on level 2 Flash unless I'm going to get some kind of a significant benefit out of it. I would much rather let that yellow or that wild sit until next turn so I can activate level 1 Flash during the build phase and draw 4 cards. So my calculation here was I just have to go. I don't have the ability to sit back because I'm under tremendous pressure and I have no queens at this point. Jeez, I got to stop showing my hand to the camera nonstop. So now I start drawing 3 cards every time I recruit a Sentinel. I've got the full combo in play. The drawback is I just end up running out. Like, I'm going to start going here. Oh, I initially forgot to put +1 counters on the Sentinels when they came out because I was focused on my combo play. And I think Scott reminded me, hey, those guys need some pluses. So I'm drawing another... Now, I tuck these Sentinels because I have the same number of counters, and just for ease of being able to see the board, if I tuck them all, I don't have to get out 2 counters per sentinel. Now once combat starts happening, you got to kind of divvy them up and represent that better, but during particularly this type of recruit step where you're throwing out lots of sentinels, or trying to throw out lots of sentinels, saying, okay, all of this type of sentinel that comes in with 2 counters, I'm just going to tuck them all underneath each other just to hold up, take up less space. Now this is a pretty anemic pop-off. This is not how you want this deck to go, but I just didn't draw enough sentinels, and I immediately knew I was in big trouble. Like, there's only one machine. I committed the only machine to this turn, and I'm not getting there. It's so scary. So now, as I start to go into combats and stuff, I start to peel the counters, or peel the stacks of sentinels apart and put the counters on each individual one, because once you get into combat, you do need to kind of track that separately. Pretty sure that one that I put in the back had mobile, and I was trying to do something cute here. I think I was trying to lethal Captain America here, maybe. I must have made a mistake of some kind. I don't remember exactly what happened there. Oh, no, the guy had Fearless, and I confused Fearless and Violent. That's what happened there. I was trying to go into Cloak. Man, I remember feeling like I'm pretty sure I lost here. Like I had to draw more sentinels when I popped off with Ultrons, and I couldn't. Brutal. Had to look another card up real quick. So I mobile that guy up front. No. Should have put the Ultrons up front, probably. Try to protect the machine. Didn't think about that. There's just like nothing to do here. So at this point, like I could attack into Captain America, which is what I think I ended up doing. Yeah. And then I mobiled that other Sentinel up front. But with these flyers, I can't. And I didn't really want to kill Firestar with this particular board state because their counters would just transfer to somebody else. Which ultimately I think ends up happening anyway. But at this moment in time, I don't think I could get to her. So I level down there, and I'm feeling the pressure. Like this board is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 characters, 9 characters on his board. And while I do have a big board, mine's rinky-dink comparatively. Start a turn, Cloak is gonna, or Dagger rather, no, it's Cloak that gives the minuses. Cloak picks off one of my Ultrons. Captain America is going to destroy my board by throwing his shield here in a second. Doing a Sentinel check real quick to make sure what I got in there. And then I start tracking him with the dice. And move the dice? What am I doing? So those dots that I'm marking down off to the side there, that's for each power that the Sentinels have in the KO. I've started tracking that on paper because otherwise it's annoying to have to keep going back to the KO pile every time you need to check it. Can't remember what Scott recruits here. Oh, Uncle Ben. So now all his dudes have tough, which is even more annoying and ends up being a problem. Everything he does is a problem. So for anybody who doesn't remember, Uncle Ben gives all the front row Spider-Friend dudes tough. So That means you crack into Cloak, and he just stays up, and you still can't get to the guys in the back row. So frustrating. I don't remember the exact sequence here, so I think, yeah, there goes Gwen, and with the Sonic Disruptor, she just rips counters off one of my Sentinels, make him a little bit more bite-size, and I think the next play is he's going to throw Captain America's shield and kill one of my 3/3 Sentinels, kill one of the 2/2 executive types, and then kill the one that Gwen just ripped the counters off of. Pretty sure that's what goes down next. Yep, there went the red. Ugh, this play made me sick. It's like I really like Captain America, and I really hate this play. Which, it's a great way to deal with executives. Oh, I guess maybe he killed... Yeah, okay, so he killed an Ultron with the 1/1. That is a better play than the smaller Sentinel. But now that Spider Carnage can kill the smaller Sentinel, and in my head I'm doing the math, like he has enough attacks, he's going to get to my machine, he's going to kill all 3 Ultrons that I have. Like, this is devastating. Yes, he thought the inhibitor collar was a character there, and I'm like, no, it was just glary where it was before, so I moved it. And right there, I think Scott's got to feel pretty good. He's got to be like, okay, I know what this deck wants to do. He's 1 wound off of being dead. Now, I flip the Clintar and draw 2 cards before I placed a resource set. Come on, man. Stop showing your hand to the camera. It's so embarrassing. And I think... Is this where I finally see queens? Yeah, okay. But because I have to row the queens, that means I can't use a resource in row to pay for it because I don't have anything else. Wow, these plays felt really bad. Oh, so I started to try to play a Praetor there, and I was like, wait. I can't do that. I have to do this different play. If I remember, the thinking was I thought maybe I could play a Praetor and then 1 Sentinel. Okay, so there's the heal. Thing about queens is you have to do it during the build. So you kind of have to be careful because I have this bad habit of... Oh, and that's it. I passed. I didn't level up? Ooh. That seems foolhardy. Why didn't I level up there? Huh. I bet I have a wild in my hand that I wanted to use to dig for 2 more cards. So the inhibitor collar died there because he had to put a -1 counter somewhere. Couldn't put it on my side of the board because I had no characters. And he put it on Prodigy. Man, look at that board. So at the start of next turn, he's going to generate 4 extra recruit points. So Frank Drake, I'm pretty sure I get the weapon here. Yeah. Which I've since been told you don't have to reveal your inventions. It's like, I don't know. I need to check that rule. Because I was told by somebody that I had to reveal my inventions. So I started doing it all the time. And now I think that might be wrong. Another Sentinel check here. Plus the 2 counters. No, I didn't have the Praetor. So that's the thing that I wanted to do. I wanted to play Praetor, then play the Sentinel. But I realized I couldn't do that because what I really needed to do was throw an inhibitor collar onto Gwen Stacy to get rid of the Sonic Disruptor, which gives me the ability to build counters and takes away Scott's ability to just wipe them away. Well, he can still wipe them away, but he has to work for it. So I'm looking at my options here, and it's like, I can't deal with Cloak. I can't deal with Firestar. I don't have anybody that can deal with Captain America. The whole back row is off limits. I'm pretty sure I played the weapon in defense mode there. Like, that's a pretty common play for me to try to keep when I'm under a lot of pressure to throw the weapon out in defense mode. So we lethal Spider Carnage away. Oh no, I attacked. I must have... Oh yeah, I remember this now. I eschewed the defense mode play because I was like, I gotta deal with that Captain America. So I put 5 attack on my MC and attacked into Captain America, and he played freaking in good hands. Oh man, I was mad. How dare you? So end my turn, I level up. Another super weak turn. I couldn't get ahead. So +1 counter from Dagger, a -1 counter from Cloak is going somewhere. I think it goes on the main character here, but I don't remember. Nope, Frank Drake. There we go. Which does get him within killing distance of Captain America, but as you can see, Scott's not showing any reds at this point. So this guy has 8 recruit points. What can you do with 8 recruit points? Recruited 12-12. So I'm looking him up right now because what I wanted to know was the timing on when he got his update. Because I was thinking it was at the end or at the start of your next turn or something. I don't know. For whatever reason, I was thinking that the timing on his update would evade an MCA. But I ended up throwing the Mutant Control Act out there because I didn't want to give Spider-Man the ability to do that first update and become a flying range 12-12. I felt like that was just going to be too much. I mean, this is already too much. I'm in horrible, horrible shape here. On my level 2, I've got 6 health points, so I have a little bit of a buffer, but I'm forced to level down into level 1 at the end of my turn every time I'm level 2, who only has 5 hit points, which is not ideal. Just chews up my board, man. Look at it. It's crazy. So now the danger here with Flash with the weapon in attack mode for me is you can send Firestar in and she dies, and then all those counters just go somewhere else after you put a wound on me. Which is exactly what happens. So this is like value on value with this chick. I lose my weapon, which I kind of saw coming. Like, I didn't think that was going to last a lot of turns, and it was just devastating to see that in good hands come down. Oh my goodness, dude. Stop showing your hand to the camera. I gotta be way better about that. It's just... You can see everything! Like Patrick Stewart in an episode of Extras. So what do I do this turn? We're going into turn 6. I cannot remember what my play was here. I was definitely thinking hard about how I was going to try to use Praetor to put additional value onto my Sentinels, because I felt like that was really the only way I was going to be able to survive long enough to get into some of my big threats, was having these big Sentinels up front that kind of made life hard on Scott pushing through. The -1 counter on Spider-Man was from Cloak's end of turn activation, incidentally. Ultimately, my decision to put Praetor up front was like, well, maybe I'll be able to fly him over and like hit Uncle Ben or somebody. Gotta get Cloak out of the way. Which he is so big at this point. So I think he's a 4-7 and he's +8/+8. So at 12-16, it's so unfair. Or 12-15 rather, sorry. It's like, well, Captain America's a 7. Spider-Man's an 11. What am I going to do here? So all my Sentinels do have mobile because the mobile one died pretty early. Like, he was one of the ones that I'm pretty sure died the turn after I went off with the machine. Holy cow. I wonder if I've been showing my hand to the camera like that, like, all along. That's really bad. So you got to worry about defense. You got to worry about... oh yeah, this is where I'm learning about Cloak's defense power, which I keep forgetting. That anytime she's in combat, she gets double defense. Which is stupid. And I think I make a couple bad attacks into her that do nothing because of it over the course of this game. Now, I think what I'm hoping here is that I have the lethal Sentinel already in the KO pile. Oh, that must be the Berserker one because he got one extra there. And I was debating for a long time trying to get lethal Spider-Man off the board or try to put a wound on Cloak. And I was like, well, if I can stun Cloak, I'll be able to fly into the back row with Praetor. And then he used Tough because Uncle Ben is in play. And Uncle Ben cannot... And Cloak, because he's tough, is still in my way. So flip a resource there to put 2+1s onto Flash to make sure he's big enough to deal with Captain America. Even though he wasn't showing a red, I felt like that was a significant threat. So I mobiled that Sentinel up front for some reason before I attacked with it. I don't remember what the thinking was there. Oh, Ferocious. I wanted to make sure I hit first. Although I'm not sure why that mattered. So I level down at the end of my turn, and I have 1 wound to give. And right here, I'm like, there's probably a strong argument for conceding. Like, I was thinking about it. Like, looking at his plays, being like, okay, all he needs to do is chop through these front row characters, which doesn't seem like it's going to be that hard. And then that's it. I'm dead. Like, he's got the attack on board. He's got 3 really solid attacks. So if he recruits basically anything that can get through either one of these Sentinels or Praetor, I'm sunk. And now his healing starts to come out. So he sees a Queen's a couple turns after I saw a Queen's, and I'm like, this game is never going to end unless I concede. Should I just concede? Let's see what he recruits. Another Firestar. And I start to MCA that Firestar, and then Scott explains to me, hey, she doesn't have an appear power. Because in my head, I thought her blue power was her appear power, and he's like, take that card back. So, okay, man, sorry. Bad play on my part. So, once again, he's got an 8-character board. My board looks flimsy as a sheet of newspaper in a rainstorm. And he is about to just chop through me. So Queens goes off there to remove a wound from Cloak. So he's almost back up to full health. Spider-Man's going to get his update this turn, and I think he burns it right away to get flight and range. So there's some consideration here about how he wants to do this attack. And ultimately, this is where Scott makes a fatal misplay. Because he looks at the 2 available Sentinels, and the one he goes after first has dodge. Which makes it so Dagger can no longer attack into the remaining Sentinel. Okay, had a little bit of a technical hiccup there. I think we might have jumped back in time slightly. Okay, yeah, all right, now we're back. Sorry about that. My recording got interrupted in the middle here and it kind of threw everything off. So Spider-Man attacked into the Sentinel that had dodge, which I think is what I was talking about before everything crapped out on me. And this was a misplay on Scott's part, because what it allowed me to do is not have to worry, or what it prevented him from doing, I guess is a better way to phrase it, was declaring an attack with Dagger, which was going to be necessary for him to actually get all the way through and hit my MC. So he ended up having to use Dagger on Praetor, and none of his other guys were big enough to get through that Sentinel. And this right here is the moment where I was like, ooh, I'm really glad I didn't concede. So I'm still not in good shape, but at 6 recruit points, I'm starting to get to the place where he's kind of stalling and I'm starting to build. So I threw a resource from hand because what I wanted was to draw queens off the top of my deck, which I could then row and use to heal. Didn't go on. And I'm like gobsmacked. Like, where are these copies of queens? I'm in so much trouble here. Where are they? So being able to play Terrax out on my 7 resources after this was a pretty big deal. So I thought for a minute about trying to go aggro and putting Flash up front, and I very quickly there was like, that's probably not the best idea. So what I'm considering here is there a way that I can attack with these counters and get value out of them, then activate Terrax and put the counters on somebody else and attack with that somebody else, and essentially get value out of the counters twice, get 2 attacks out of them. And I think about this for probably longer than I should. Like, it's really important. So I'm throwing the green from hand to Terrax's power, and I'm stealing all the counters off of Scott's side of the board, all the counters off my side of the board, and I gotta put them, I want to put them on my main character because I want to protect myself from that wound, but I realized really quickly the only way I'm going to get out of this is I need to make my Sentinel big enough. So there was some dispute about how many counters there were. So I pulled them all off and then put them back out to talk through it with Scott, because I think he missed that I had 2 on Flash. So I look at a D20, that doesn't seem good enough. So I get 2 D10s, which the fact that they weren't the same, I had to get up and get a different dice because I'm too OCD to have mismatched dice. So the thinking here is I attack. I think he was like a 36 or something. He was pretty big. 26, I don't remember exactly. Got one more for... But I felt like I had to attack with Berserker and get Spider-Man out of there. Or attack with Lethal and get Spider-Man out of there. Terrax cleans up Firestar, and now the threats are starting to fall off the board. Now I'm still in a bad spot as far as wounds go. He's still big enough to stun me with some of his guys, but at least at this point, I can hide my main character in the back row. I got a flying giant in the form of the Sentinel, and I got a flying... I mean, a 7/7 flyer in the form of Terrax is not that insignificant either. -1 comes down on me at start of turn from Cloak. So Spider-Girl is also pretty annoying. Now I'm holding a lot of cards still. While I didn't fully go off and draw my entire deck, I did draw 15 cards, I think. Yeah, I think I drew 15 cards. And, oh, this was the bathroom break. So even though I wasn't able to draw my entire deck, 15 extra cards is a big deal. So I am holding Mutant Control Axe in my hand, and everything Scott throws out, I'm like, let me MCA that card. There's really no point in MCAing Spider-Girl. I'm not getting to her anyway. So I had to run to the bathroom here because the game went so long. Let me see if I can... Oh, and we're back. A little bit embarrassing to have to take a bathroom break in the middle of a game, but it is what it is. So the problem here is Scott is definitely able to declare some attacks that are problematic for me, but he doesn't have enough threatening attacks that he's going to be able to get through my Sentinel, get through Terrax, and put a wound on my MC. Now with the power up, Man, does that get her up to a 7 attack? I don't remember what that gets her attack up to, but it's annoying. I think it's a 7 because it's big enough to put a wound on Terax. Yeah, I think she's a printed 6. And unfortunately, oh, there's again, I went to draw and he's like, oh wait, I have to do my end of turn counters. And this is where it starts to sink in that there's a real possibility that if I can't make something happen on these main characters, he may be able to just minus counter me to death. See how few cards I have there? I didn't draw queens. But I drew something better. So I play a resource, and I play a monarch, which lets me refresh my row, and I immediately flip the 1 queens that I've seen the whole game to get myself. Now I can level back down, and I'm not on death's door pressure anymore. But now I'm under a different kind of pressure. I turn my heater on, so even though it's like kind of noisy and sucks, I was able to take my gloves off for a little while. So Monarch's whole thing is almost irrelevant now. He's already done what he needs to do. He's just a big annoying body for Scott to have to deal with. Now the thing that I'm pondering here is I don't have any heralds in hand, and I feel like Galactus is maybe the way I completely put this game out of reach for Scott. So I start thinking I need to be like defensive of my Terax to be able to get that Galactus out. So while I really want to leave all those counters on the Sentinel, the line I ultimately end up settling on is I need to put them on Terax because I need to make Terax as unkillable as possible. I don't want to end up with Galactus stuck in my hand and watch the game slip away now that I've finally started to turn the corner. I don't remember what we're talking about here, but apparently I felt very strongly about it in the form of hand gestures. Oh, I'm worried about Kurt Connors in this particular play. The line that I hadn't realized the way it works is when you stun Kurt Connors, if he is hit with a lethal attack, even though he transforms into Lizard, that's the lethal goes through and it kills Lizard. So that's what I was kind of realizing there. And I attempted to do that with my Sentinel, at which point Scott threw down In Good Hands, which is the most hated card ever, and prevented me from being able to successfully complete that attack. Activate Terax there, pull the counters off my MC, pull the counters off of the Sentinel, and this is where I transform. So this is one of those turns where I sort of did that play where I was like, oh, I'm going to attack with these counters, then I'm going to move them. The problem is the character I attacked into with all the counters, the thing I really wanted there was the lethal. So reusing the counters felt a little anemic in this particular moment. Now, I don't want to attack into Connors if I don't have the lethal, because I really don't want to give him a Lizard. I'm already, still kind of drowning in his stuff. This time he left Cloak face down, which kind of makes sense, because if he would have gone back up, I could have ranged him with Agent Venom. I considered range attacking into Dagger there, but I did not want to get traded on. So, and she has a massive defense when attacked. So, which is the thing I kept forgetting throughout the course of this game, is that anytime she's in combat, she gets double her defense. So at the start of last turn, I had 8 resources face up, and 4 of them are already gone. That's how quick I'm burning through my locations in this game. So this is kind of where Scott starts to really run out of gas. So he goes for the spider gear, and he does get, of course, the one that you would expect, is the ability to daze a character when you declare an attack into it. And he removes something like 89 counters or 80 counters off the board. So frustrating. I mean, it's a good play, but I would have preferred he just didn't do that. But even here, once I've kind of started to turn the corner, I'm starting to build a little bit of a life cushion for myself. I'm getting my own board. He still has these things in his deck that really allow him to stay in this game. So a couple turns ago, I was strongly considering conceding, pretty much right up until the point where he left his dagger trapped in the back row, and I could see that he wasn't going to get through. Okay, I don't want to concede now. Let's at least see 2 more cards, or 4, depending upon which version of Flash I was on. But that turn where Cloak didn't get to trigger at the start of turn because he was face down, that felt like a large cold drink of water. Like, that felt real good. So Terex got dazed there, so he went face down, lost all those counters that I had built up, but isn't dead, which is what I was really concerned with. I was like, I need my Herald to survive so I can recruit Galactus when I am on 11. Or fewer if I happen to draw into a Praetor. So that Spider Friends gives him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, +5/+5. So Cloak is gigantic. I'm checking my hand. Nothing I can do. Cloak chews his way through Monarch, and I'm pretty sure Prowler is going to get that Sentinel here. I guess Cloak might go for the Sun. Or maybe, I don't remember what he does here. So if it was me, I think I would send Prowler into the Sentinel and then Dagger into the MC. Oh, no. So he killed the Sentinel with a -1 counter and put a +1 at end of turn using Cloak and Dagger's powers and sent it back over to me. And I finally drew another Queens, and I immediately use it. And this is where I really started to think, okay, there's enough turns. Even if he hits me every turn here, I'm still going to get Galactus down. And once that happens, I don't think he's going to be able to deal with it. But that means my Terax has to survive, which is definitely not a guarantee. I probably burned more brain power than I really needed to in this game, worrying about Connors turning into Lizard. Like, I think I probably could have dealt with Lizard. Like, at these steps of the game, that's not a massively beneficial character for him, but I had felt so far behind on board for the entire stretch of this game that I just was like, no, you're not getting that Lizard. That's never going to happen. So, to be clear, this is not a game where my game plan really worked out. Like, things went pretty bad for me in a lot of significant ways. Pretty sure I'm going to grab a gadget here. Oh, by this point, Scott was like, you don't have to reveal those, so I didn't. But I'm pretty sure that's what I got, was the gadget. Might have been the automaton, I don't remember now. So I'm doing a Sentinel check here, even though I have them kind of marked down on a sheet of paper. Every once in a while, I like to double check and make sure my numbers are right. I think he had 6 +1 counters. Oh, that Scott asked which characters had hit executive type Sentinels, and so far they'd only been hit by Cloak and Dagger, and I think, as I noted earlier in this commentary track, that he hit one with Prodigy, was it? And I failed to notate it. So I'm throwing the collar down on Spider-Girl, not because I really care about Spider-Girl, but because I really care about this stupid Sonic Disruptor stealing all my counters away, so I had to stop that. That does not feel like a very high value collar. Also, this was maxing out my recruit points each turn because I didn't have the machine plays that I was kind of used to being able to make at this point in the game, I was not able to make because I didn't have the machine. Everything cost full value. So that Dazed character was from Lilith's effect. Frank Drake lethals Connor's off, so I don't have to deal with Lizard. And now it's, how do I deal with Cloak? And there's not that many. I think there's 6 counters. So 6 turns into 12 once I use Terax's power. I think that's how many there were. And I have to put him on Terax here. Now, again, part of the concern is that I need the Herald to survive. We're on turn 9. I need to get to turn 11 and have a Herald to be able to play Galactus. So even though maybe the Sentinel was the better card to have all the counters on, having a big Terax that can put a wound on Cloak is a pretty big deal. And to turn I level up. At this point, there's not that many cards left in my deck, so being able to draw more cards off of Civilian Life on the level 1 Flash is much less of a concern than earlier in the game. Pretty sure a -1 counter off Cloak is what picked off that Sentinel there. The experience counters on the 2 back row characters are collars. Prowler kills Prowler, gives him another card. I actually considered MCA in that Prowler there. Like, no, you don't get an extra card. But that's a low value play. Another stupid Connors. Draw a little attention to Frank Drake here in this game. Not only were the inventions clutch, but his lethal has proven to be very useful. It's surprisingly useful, the number of cards that he can just get out of the way. 4/4 on 3 isn't like the best stats ever, but it's significant enough that it's big enough that he can pick off a lot of things, and with range, there's a lot going for that card. So a lot of stuff in Scott's front row there, and I'm pretty sure. So what he does here is he declares a team attack with Cloak, Dagger, and Spider-Girl. So he's got Cloak has violent or ferocious or whatever, fearless. Jeez. So he strikes for 10 plus the other 2. This is definitely big enough to deal with my Terax. That's a huge problem. And I'm going to play Gadget. I remove Cloak from the combat. His remaining attackers aren't big enough to stun Terax, and I am able to get my first wound. Oh, I killed Spider-Girl. Got rid of her instead of putting a wound on Dagger. Oh, yeah, because Dagger's so freaking big. I don't think I was big enough. No, I had to have been big enough. -1 counter at end of turn goes on Lilith. Double checking my... I think I'm debating whether I want to invent anything here. So we got another one of those super awesome game autographed Los Angeles. And I think that's going to go right into Frank Drake to invent something. So 10 resources puts me 1 off Galactus, as Scott observes, like, oh, I got a little time yet. But I think by this point he could kind of see the writing on the wall. My wounds had gotten low enough, and he was starting to sputter out. Like, there was a few of these turns where I was about to declare attacks, and I said something, you know, like, how many cards you got in hand? None. The amount of value this deck put out initially, the Cloak and Dagger lines were crazy. It got so far out of control so fast. Now, admittedly, I was playing a very low pressure game. I was playing a very, here we go. So for anybody who doesn't know, way back in quarantine. So, man, there's a few things going on here. First of all, I invented the Exorcist gun there. I put that on Lilith simply to give her range, the ability to hit a character and remove all the copies from the game. It's not relevant here because all of Scott's characters are good characters, and the Exorcist gun can only exorcise evil characters. The other thing is, way back in, I think it was Quarantine Cup 1, or maybe it was 2, I played round 1 against Scott with a Just for Fun Sister Grimm deck, and he came in with a Kate Kelly and beat me in 3 turns with like no interaction. I don't think I declared an attack the whole game. So I told him before this match, I was like, I'm going to get you, man. Like, I owe you a beating. And then he came out like this. Like, oh, apparently he owed me a second beating. So it felt pretty good to get Kelly down, and I'm like, I'm going to beat you with Kelly. Here we go. So I'm trying to build my board in such a way that Kelly's protected. Like, Lilith is really strong, and a cool range attack with her is really cool. But the most important things now, like my win conditions, are Kelly. So stun a character there using Lilith. Frank Drake with lethal goes into Kurt to clear him. I don't have to deal with Lizard. Technically, Kurt gets removed from the game, and there's a Lizard in the KO pile, in case that's relevant to Scott's deck in some way. I don't think it was, but that's the order of events. So I think Maker's going to clear up Prowler here like a chump. Yeah. 6/8 into a 1-drop. Feels so weak. And then I think Terrax. Oh. 2 extra counters on Flash to get him big enough to be able to clip Cloak. And I'm pretty sure I had to throw that from hand to get big enough. And then a gigantic Terrax who is definitely big enough to deal with Dagger. And why didn't I attack with Lilith there? Huh, that's a misplay. I should have attacked with Lilith. Weird. Okay. I don't remember catching that in the moment, so I must have just made that mistake and not even realize it. Oh, and I made another misplay there where I should have leveled down already. There, I caught it. But I remembered once in this game, towards the end, I had a turn where I missed the trigger on Flash leveling down by like a lot. So Cloak takes out Maker, and Dagger kills Frank Drake. But now we are coming into turn 11. Kelly gets his first Vitality counter, and we're going to play a Galactus here. Going to draw 2 cards first, I guess. I do love drawing cards. This is probably, if not my all-time favorite main character, it's very close. I love everything about what Flash does. I like the card draw. I like that he can turn into a 7/7 on turn 2. Like, I love everything about him. I mean, technically turn 1, but you can't do anything with the 7/7 until turn 2. So I'm having a debate here, like, what do I want to do? And really, all I need to do is just slap his guys a couple times and then pass. I don't know why I put Maker in the back row. That was silly. Oh, there was a little bit of a miscommunication there where Scott thought that Galactus eating locations happened when he came into play, so he started to go for that before I actually went into main phase, and I was like, well, I'm going to eat your training grounds, but hold up. Like, that's not till the main phase. Let me figure out what I'm doing here. That time I remembered to attack with Lilith. And that's the game right there. So I don't know that there's anything that Scott recruits here, but it's kind of irrelevant at this point. I've killed one of his MCs. Dagger is very much on the ropes. He's not going to have the ability to play his own Galactus or any evil character because of that stupid in good hands card. And as soon as he passes turn, I win with Kelly, which felt so good to get him back for the Kelly win that he did. And then I kind of show him my hand there. In the bottom little bit of my deck, I did have the rest of my queens, more Praetors. Like, there were very relevant cards in the bottom of the deck, but I just never got to them. I think there were only 6 cards left, which is crazy that all 3 of my other copies of queens were in the bottom 6 cards. Or 2. Yeah, because I had played 1, and then I reused it with Monarch. Maybe there's not. I don't remember. Anyway, so that's the last game that we had. Thanks to Scott for being such a good sport and playing that out. Certainly was a grindy, when the game is not moving at 2 times speed, this recording is over 2 hours long. So I really appreciate the time and hanging out with him afterwards, talking about games. Big fan of that dude. Big fan of the game we were able to put together here. This was a lot of fun, and I was really taken by surprise by how much game Cloak and Dagger had. I did not think that they were going to be that punchy, but hey, you get that turn 1 wealthy friends and family guy and you're recruiting 8 drops on turn 6, that feels pretty good. All right, till next time, go win some games.